This show is sponsored by BetterHelp. What's something you'd love to learn? As an adult, do you make time to learn new things as often as you'd like, or is that lost in childhood? Kids are always learning and growing, but as adults, sometimes we lose that curiosity. With having to balance school, social life, and family, things tend to speed up really quickly in September, sometimes leaving me stressed or anxious. Therapy could be really beneficial, allowing you to slow down and take a step back. It's helpful for learning positive coping skills and how to set boundaries. If you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. Just fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist and switch therapists at any time for no additional charge. Rediscover your curiosity with BetterHelp. Visit betterhelp.com/THPN today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/THPN.
Episode 87 of the Habs Culture podcast. My name is Justin Schwartz alongside Liam Baum. Today, we are not in the same room recording an episode. Kind of tough, but just means that things will probably get back into a more consistent schedule considering that the Canadian season is actually right around the corner. I was looking at it a couple days ago, Liam. I don't know if you saw this, but the Habs have been promoting the fact that the first game of the season will be played on October 9th against the Leafs. Today we are September 11th. That's less than a month away. So I'm pumped. I mean, and I think even more so because of the Laine move and the fact that Dach is healthy. Like, I just think that there's so much to look forward to for game one. But
yeah, it's like the most excited. Yeah, it's like I feel like it's the most excited we've been going into a Habs season in a while. So it's right around the corner. I'm really excited.
Yeah, same here. But nonetheless, I think that we're still in a bit of a lull, I guess, if you want to say it, in terms of the NHL world. I know that the Canadiens officially started their training camp today, September 11th. So the rookie camp. So we're going to see guys like Laine Hudson, Reinbacher, Engstrom, Logan Mailloux. Those are the defensemen and others. And then at forward, you'll have guys like Owen Beck and company that will be, competing or trying to show that they deserve a spot in the NHL or even just the AHL. So we'll monitor that pretty closely. But today we had the idea of, Liam had the idea of putting together or asking ChatGPT, one of the more used tools nowadays. Definitely comes in handy here and there, but to see how they would grade the trades that the Montreal Canadiens have made in the past. So under the Bergevin era, under the Kent Hughes era, what do they think of the trades? How would they evaluate it? Obviously, sometimes the rating they might give might be crazy or kind of straightforward or whatever. It might just not be something that you would expect, but that's kind of the beauty of this.
Yeah, that's just part of it.
Exactly. And we're going to follow it up with our own ratings of our own. So we're going to start it off. We're going to start it off with one of the bigger moves, the one that I kind of just mentioned at the top of the show, and that is the acquisition of Patrik Laine from Columbus. ChatGPT, and keep in mind, this is using the internet also, so they do have the ability to see what the Canadiens got in return, obviously, or what the Canadiens got, what they gave up, and how these players have developed. So Patrik Laine from Columbus, an 8 out of 10. So from Montreal's perspective, acquiring Laine represents a bold move to improve their offensive firepower. While his form has dipped since his early years, Laine's goal-scoring potential is undeniable. Montreal also received a second-round pick, making the risk more manageable. If Laine flourishes under Martin St. Louis' coaching, this trade could prove to be a major steal. Liam, thoughts?
I mean, we've talked about this trade so much, but I feel like ChatGPT is underrating this move. I think right away we should give our ranking, and consensusly, if that's the right word to use, we're giving this trade a 10 out of 10 compared to ChatGPT's 8 out of 10, just because Laine's on a 2-year deal. There's basically no risk at all. We're not committed long term, and he's being put in a great position. He knows this isn't a Stanley Cup winning team, but he's going to contribute to this, and the Habs have been needing a goal scorer for so long, and he's the guy that's able to do that. So again, no risk, and on top of it, we're getting a second-round pick. So I don't know how this isn't a 10.
Yeah, I wonder what I guess you could say the criteria that ChatGPT is using in this case is. Mm-hmm. But I mean, I think we highlighted this many times where is the real risk in this trade? I mean, there's pretty much none. Obviously, he carries a pretty significant cap hit for the next 2 seasons, but it's not like the Canadiens are in a spot to compete at the very moment. They're not pushing for a playoff spot. They're not pushing for the cup right now. So if he works out, if he goes out and scores a ton of goals next season, or if he's a good point contributor and a guy that slots into their top 6, perfect. Maybe they re-sign him for a little bit cheaper 2 years down the line when he's a UFA again. But if it doesn't work out, you let him walk and you experimented. And you can say that you at least tried to make this roster better.
And again, you
We'll
can
move on. Yeah.
I just want to add one more thing. I mean, you can give that a 9.5 out of 10, but I just don't see how it's anything less than that just based on the contract situation. It doesn't make sense to me that people think that this is a risky move. It's not like we're a contending team. We're not a Stanley Cup winning team, but this move can get us to the next step. So I feel like 10 out of 10 is a perfect ranking here.
And I think the one thing that GPT doesn't take into consideration is kind of the timing of it all too, right? I mean, the Canadiens go out, have a very successful draft. They pick up Ivan Demidov. They've had 2 or 3 very good drafts in a row now. And now they're in a position where, hey, we're going to go add someone. We're going to go give up assets, but not going to be giving up a pretty penny here. You're really going to be getting a guy at a little bit cheaper because of the down season that he's had over the last 2 years. And I think that's important for us as rankers in this case to take into consideration, because it's not like the Canadiens threw a ton of assets at Columbus and said, give us Laine, we'll give you everything that we have. They waited for the perfect moment. They pulled the trigger and essentially got Laine for free plus a second round pick, or not for free. We gave up Jordan Harris, but got Laine, got a second round pick. And where's the risk in all this? There's pretty much none, like we mentioned. So it's really nice to see that the Canadiens were able to pull off that move. And I think 8 out of 10 is very modest. And I think, like you said, a 9 out of 10, 9.5 out of 10 is a little bit more appropriate. And honestly, I think that it's not being biased in this case.
No, not at all. I mean, we got rid of a defenseman in a very crowded defenseman room. It's not like we gave up a prospect or we gave up a future pick. We gave up a guy that probably isn't competing for a top 4 role, and I feel like that's perfect for us.
If there's one knock, like I think it's important for us to be critical too. If there's one knock, and if you wanted to take off any points at all for this trade, I think the one thing that you could say is that it does knock someone off the top power play. That's about it. Like Kirby Dach, who we'll get to in a moment. Kirby Dach might be the odd man out on the power play. How does that affect his progression? Now, does that mean we're going to bring it down to a 7 or a 6? Absolutely not. I'm just saying maybe that 0.5 or that 1 point, if we're considering other factors, could be interesting to bring up there.
Yes. But then again, you can argue, has Kirby Dach earned the power play 1 spot? So
I mean, we haven't seen much of him as to date. But with that being said, we're going to bring up we get a lot of hate in the comments for the way that we pronounce Kirby Dach.
Seriously.
It's Dach. I think it's Dach. So we'll stick to that. But
I'll try to stick to Dach.
Let's see if you could do it, Liam. I don't know. But let's see. The next trade that we have up here is Kirby Dach, who the Canadiens acquired from Chicago in 2022 during the Slavkovsky draft. Crazy things going on at the Bell Center. It was an unbelievable move. It was an interesting move. It was something that was exciting for fans. And I'll just read it out here. They gave it a 9 out of 10. Dach has already made a meaningful impact in Montreal, filling a critical need for young, dynamic forwards. His versatility and two-way game have helped solidify the Canadiens' rebuild, and he fits perfectly alongside players like Nick Suzuki and Cole Caulfield, and many others. I don't know where Slavkovsky and Laine are. I don't know why they're not included in this definition or in this answer, but that's okay. Liam, 9 out of 10. Our consensus is?
I'm giving this an 8.5 out of 10.
Look, I know that we're supposed to be in consensus here on the 8.5.
Mm-hmm.
I think I would bump it down a half a point or a full point. I think let's meet in the middle. Why don't we say it at an 8?
Yeah.
Because
right.
I think the truth is, and I want to hear what you have to say. The truth is, this rating is a good rating. An 8 out of 10 is a good rating. 9 out of 10, I think, is pushing it for the sole purpose that he hasn't played enough on this team yet. After this season, it could be a 10. It could be. You could make the case that if he goes out there, produces, has a great season, and fills that 2C void that the Canadiens have been missing forever this season in 2024, 2025, there's no doubt in my mind that you can make the case that this is a 10. But at this point in time, going into his technically third season on his contract with the Canadiens, right now I think it's an 8 because of the amount of games that he's missed.
Yeah, 100%. I think it all stems from how we've seen him develop and kind of how we haven't seen him develop because he hasn't played that much for the Canadiens every year. It seems like an injury, but we're both huge fans of Kirby Dach, and we really want to see him flourish with the Canadiens, and I think he will. But at this moment, we haven't seen enough to give this trade anything higher. And I also just want to talk about the return, or not the return, but what we gave up. Alex Romanov, again, we talk about a crowded defensive room, and he probably wouldn't fit into this defensive core right now. He was a great defensive defenseman and is still a very good defensive defenseman, but I feel like now we probably wouldn't need him. I feel like having Dach over Romanov is it's more advantageous for the Canadiens and better for this young core.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think at the time it was also easy to say, oh, Romanov is slowly improving as a defenseman. He was a later pick for the Canadiens, not much risk, but he could have been I guess you could call him like a rock on this team. But I think now looking back at it, it was an unbelievable move considering the logjam that they would have if Romanov was still in the system. And on the contrary, like you mentioned, now Dach is stepping into a 2C role that the Canadiens, like I said, have had a very hard time filling for a really, really long time. So
plus he was a former third overall pick not that many years ago. So I mean, getting a guy just with that former potential, and I still think he has that potential, but just having that potential in the past is amazing value. I think the return was great. We just got to see some development to give that a higher rating on 10.
NFL Week 1 is here, and a new season means new ways to get in on the action at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. Ready to place your first bet? Try betting on something simple like picking a player to score a touchdown. George Pickens, Justin Jefferson, Amon-Ra St. Brown, these are all players that you can bet on at DraftKings Sportsbook. Ready to do a touchdown dance on your own? Score big with DraftKings Sportsbook, the best place to bet touchdowns. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and use code THPN. That's code THPN for new customers to get $250 in bonus bets when you bet just $5 and get 1 month of NFL Plus premium on us. Only on DraftKings. The crown is yours.
Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort in Kansas, 21 and over, age and eligibility varies by jurisdiction. Void in New Hampshire, Oregon, and Ontario. Bonus bets expire 168 hours after issuance. For additional terms and responsible gaming resources, see dkng.co/ftball. NFL Plus premium offer available only to new and former NFL Plus subscribers. Additional NFL Plus premium terms at nfl.com/terms.
I mean, he's 23 years old. I mean, like he's
So
literally
young.
23 years old. It's just the beginning. Let's just hope that he stays healthy, and let's knock on wood that he stays healthy here. We'll move on to our next move. A guy that recently signed with the Columbus Blue Jackets, and that is Sean Monahan. When the Canadiens at the deadline traded him to Winnipeg, he did not re-sign in Winnipeg. ChatGPT gives it a 6.5 out of 10 for the Canadiens. And to read their description, while Monahan was a solid contributor during his time with Montreal, this trade is primarily viewed as a cap-clearing move. The return wasn't massive, but freeing up salary while potentially acquiring future assets fits the Canadiens' long-term rebuild goals.
I don't know if ChatGPT's on the right mindset here, because I don't think it was a cap clearing move. I mean,
Considering
I
that he's the UFA.
considering he's a UFA, and the fact that the Canadiens weren't in a playoff position and they had an asset like Sean Monahan who was playing very, very well. So ChatGPT probably has this one a bit wrong. I think consensusly we can both give this trade a 9.
Yeah, I'm in agreement there. I mean, what the Canadiens got from Monahan, what they traded for him from Calgary, first of all.
Yeah.
They acquired a conditional first to take on his salary, then re-signed him, right? No, sorry, I'm making a mistake there. I think the Habs did not re-sign him. He was still on his original contract. Excuse me. Then they take that contract and they're able to flip him for another first round pick at the deadline to Winnipeg. I mean, if we're talking about asset management strictly here, like it's an A+.
That's
an
a 12. 12
right,
out of 10.
12 on 10. But I think we also have to look at this trade from the perspective, and again, I'm I'm just trying to, I wouldn't say trying to play devil's advocate, but I'm trying to be a little bit subjective here. I think that the 9 and the fact that it's not higher is because that I think, and I want to hear what you have to say about this, is I think that there is a world where keeping Sean Monahan and re-signing him could have been a better move. Now, they got what they did what they did in terms of asset management. But I'm also looking at this trade from the perspective of how would I feel as a Canadiens fan going into the 2024 season with my 3 centers being Nick Suzuki, Kirby Dach, and Sean Monahan. Like, I know they're not competing for a cup, so I understand that he might go somewhere else and might be more, and he might want a cup. You know, he might be more of use to another team. But my point is that if you're looking from a systemic standpoint where you're looking at how to build a team schematically, that's pretty much as good as it's going to get as a 1-2-3.
Yeah, he was so versatile too, like playing power play 1 and putting up numbers on the Canadiens, and having a guy like that, especially as your third line center, just the mentorship and the veteran presence that he would bring to the Canadiens, I feel like would be really, really good. And that's why I didn't give it a 10, because like you said, there is a world where the Canadiens would benefit a lot from having Sean Monahan. I mean, the Canadiens do have some vet guys that bring that presence to the locker room, but I feel like Sean Monahan is a piece you want to hold on to. Just the character, the way he plays and the way he carries himself. It's very admirable, and I think the Canadiens did lose out. I mean, they got a first round pick, but how many first round picks can you have, and how many prospects can you have in your pool until you need to start competing, right? And I feel like not saying that the Canadiens don't have enough good prospects, or that they do have enough good prospects, but I feel like the Canadiens are at that point where they don't need these late first round picks. You know what I mean?
Right. Well, that's the thing, right? And I also see a world where Sean Monahan, he goes out, he signs with Columbus, he gets a pretty penny. I think he enjoyed playing in Montreal. I think he enjoyed being a mentor on that team. I think he enjoyed and appreciated the fact that the Canadiens took him in as, we're giving you, I wouldn't say a second chance. I don't think that's the right word, but we're going to, I guess, give you the chance to show that this is not, you didn't fall off a cliff in Calgary and you are able to produce. And I think that he would have came here and maybe signed at a discount. Now, that's all speculative. We don't know if that would have actually happened, but I think that getting Sean Monahan at a pretty penny for your third line C role at this point in his career is very, very solid. So I think that's why we give it a 9 out of 10 instead of a 10 out of 10, I guess.
Yeah. The asset management was a 12 out of 10, though. If
Exactly.
we're just considering the whole trade with Calgary and then Winnipeg, that's a 12 out of 10. But Sean Monahan as a player, the Canadiens did lose out on.
There you go. Exactly. So we'll move on to our next move here. And that is the acquisition by the Montreal Canadiens of Mike Matheson from Pittsburgh. ChatGPT gives it an 8 out of 10. Matheson has provided Montreal with a mobile, offensive-minded defenseman who can support the younger blue liners. He exceeded expectations last season, becoming one of their most reliable defensemen. I'm going to say something right off the bat, Liam. Everything that they said is true. And again, I'm trying not to be biased, but how can you possibly tell me that this is no better? Like, this has to be better than an 8 out of 10, doesn't it?
100%. And I just brought up this trade because I wanted to see who the Canadiens picked with that pick they got. And it was Bogdan Kanishkov. So you got Mike Matheson, a 4th round pick who turned out to be Bogdan Kanishkov, who, if you didn't know, we did talk about in, I think it was our last video, with the defenseman of 2028, and he cracked that roster. He's been having a hell of a few seasons in the KHL, and in return, we traded Ryan Poehling and a declining Jeff Petrie. So, everybody loved Ryan Poehling. That one-game performance in his debut was outstanding. Everyone thought he was the next McDavid, but I feel like the asset management here, again, very, very good. Like, we're getting Mike Matheson, who was 28 at the time. He's 30 now. I believe he was 27 or 28. And he just put up the most points by a Canadiens defenseman since like Andrei Markov or something. So I feel like this has to be way higher than an 8 out of 10. I'm giving it a 9.
Yeah, no, I agree here. I agree. I think, look, I think this is one of those things where not only I could go higher, right? I think the asset management was unbelievable, but also the product that Matheson has provided to the Canadiens on the ice has also been unbelievable. Now, I think we could both say that Matheson has been one of the best placeholders for a defenseman, for a team that is transitioning from a rebuild to a competing team that you can ask for. He's not cream of the crop elite. You compare him to some of the best in the league. He's not at that level. However, he's almost a point per game defenseman, or not almost a point per game defenseman, but he's a 60 point plus defenseman in this league that is very offensively capable, very good skating skills. But is he replaceable? Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So when those next guys take that next jump, he'll just, the Canadiens will move him out for some more assets to a team that needs some help on their blue line at the deadline if they're competing. And, we'll say, thank you very much, Mike Matheson, and we'll move on. Like, that's just what it's going to be. And I think that is the perfect scenario. So asset management standpoint, A+, 10 out of 10. Product on the ice, I'd give it an 8 out of 10, an 8.5. So meeting somewhere in the middle at 9 definitely makes a lot of sense.
And the way we've seen Poehling turn out to be, and the way we've seen Petrie kind of, he had his moments with the Canadiens, but now has taken a step back in his later years of his NHL career. I feel like this is just it's a perfect trade. I don't see how, or in what world the Canadiens lost this trade at all. So,
and the one thing I will say though is that if we do backtrack back to the time when the trade was made, I will be completely honest with you. I did think that the Canadiens knew what they were doing, but to say that I would give it a 9 out of 10, let alone anything over like a 7.5, I would be lying to you. Because I think at the time, letting go of Petrie, here's the thing is that this is the type of trade where the management proves that they know more than the couch GM, and it's like one of those things where I didn't think that Matheson would decline this hard. I still had
Petrie?
Yeah, thank you. Not Matheson. Petrie. I didn't think that he would decline this hard. And I thought that there was still a bit of promise for Ryan Poehling. And I was completely wrong about those two things. So at the time, I would have said, hey, this might be like a 6.5, 7 on 10. Now we're looking at an easy 9. And it's nice to know that we can depend on the management to give us these types of trades 3 years later, 2 years later.
And not to mention, Mike Matheson's contract is amazing. It's like 4 point something million for I don't know how many more years, but just outstanding contract.
Yep, exactly. So like I said, the perfect placeholder for a young core that's up and coming. We'll move on to the next trade and the last trade of this first half. The Montreal Canadiens let go of Brett Kulak, who makes his way to Edmonton. GPT gives it a 7 out of 10. And they say Kulak was a solid depth defenseman, but trading him to Edmonton for draft picks and cap flexibility was a forward-thinking move for a rebuilding team. Montreal capitalized on Kulak's trade value, knowing their younger defensemen were ready to step in. Interesting for the reason that clearly GPT is not up to date in terms of understanding that the Canadiens, the second round pick that they got for Brett Kulak, which in and of itself is unbelievable, turned into Laine Hudson. So
Unreal.
With that being said, again, I know these trades, obviously we're picking some of the better trades that the Canadiens made over the past year, so it's easy for us to give good grades, but this is like a smash 10 out of 10.
Yeah. I mean, at the time, just getting a second round pick for Brett Kulak, like you said, absolutely unreal. He's a bottom 2 defenseman. He's nothing more than that, and he's only 30 years old. The Canadiens traded him when he was 28 or 27, I believe. So, again, a guy going into his prime or best hockey years, but he's not a top 4 D-man, and getting a second-round pick for that, absolutely outstanding. And then getting Laine Hudson as that second-rounder is even better because that's a franchise defenseman right there.
Well, that's my point here, is that, obviously GPT is missing a few of the important details. But again, we have to separate the on ice. Kulak did provide something to the Canadiens. You can't deny that. He brought stability. Sure. I mean, GPT highlighted that. He brought stability. But to get even in today's NHL, right? I say in today's NHL as if this trade wasn't 2-3 years ago. But point being is that even at the deadline this year, the second that Sean Monahan was traded away to Winnipeg, the paying price, I don't let's put it this way. If Kulak were to be traded at today's deadline, I mean, what is he fetching? A 4th round pick? Maybe at that. I mean, you look at Kovacevic, he fetched a 5th or a 6th or whatever it was. Not saying that they're on the same level. Kulak's maybe a little bit better, but that's why I'll give him the round, right? Yeah. So a 4th round pick, I mean, to to a second round pick, which a team, it was Edmonton that gave it up. You're looking at that time, you're probably looking at a mid second round pick, which you're looking at in the 70s. I mean, for Kulak at that time when the Canadiens were trying to get out of a rebuild. I mean, come on. So that's a smash. That's a smash pick. 10 out of 10 for us. And we'll leave it at that for the first half. So we're going to come back with 5 more moves that the Canadiens made and see what GPT graded, and we'll give our grades of our own.